Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of On the Card presented by TRHS Sports. I'm your host, Phil Wood, and I'll be coming to you live twice a week from here on out. For all of those who know me, you probably know me because I've worked with Russell in the past for TRHS, for his Survivor show. I'm one of the hosts of the Survivor Specialist. Or you might know me because you're over here, you saw this on Twitter, and you know me from my Betting Pros work. But I'm here to try to make you guys some money and make you guys win some bets here. Normally we're going to be doing these on Mondays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. What's interesting about this week, of course, is that the NBA is starting this afternoon. So, of course, we need to get it going earlier. I wanted to do this one early in the morning because there's two games tonight for the NBA with the Clippers taking on the Lakers and the Jazz taking on the Pelicans. But I'm going to try to be covering pretty much everything. If there's any games that I'm not touching, let me know. Put it in the chat. I can only do so much in terms of odds that I've seen for the weekend. Like I said, going to be doing this on Mondays and Thursdays. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to get some of the odds for some of the Sunday games or some of the Monday early games, but especially for MLB. But if you want to check out more of my takes on certain games every day, you can check me out at realphilwood.com. I just launched the website today, just put up my first article, which is going to be very similar to what you're seeing here in terms of what bets I'm predicting for just today. That's going to be more of a daily thing. So I'll be updating that every day as new lines come out for games and such. But we have a really crowded weekend of sports. For the first time in months, we finally have a crowded weekend of sports. It's not just MLB here and there, a couple MLS games for all of you who are really, really struggling to sit through this and have been as desperate for sports as I have been, who have sat down and actually watched the Portland Timbers versus FC Cincinnati in one of the most horrific sporting events I think I've ever watched in my entire life. It's over. We're into the big time now. We're into real sports, real games. Of course, I am going to be talking a little bit about the MLS. If that's not your thing, make sure to tune out when that comes. But we have the NBA starting up tonight. We have the NHL starting up on Saturday. Going to be huge just weekend in the world of sports. I'm going to be starting off with the NBA, actually, because I have a couple things I need to say, and I feel like this is what everybody wants to hear about anyway. Tonight's games are huge for a variety of reasons. First of all, they're huge because the NBA is back, and that's what we want to see. Another reason why they're huge is because the Pelicans are playing the Jazz, and the Pelicans are the 10th best team in the West, and all of the attention right now is on Zion Williamson and him getting to the playoffs as the 8th seed. That's what everybody's looking at right now. It's what Vegas knows everybody's looking at right now. And something that I don't really want to dwell on too much because I don't think fading the public is actually as big of a deal as people say it is. There's times to fade the public for sure, but it's not like every bet you should fade the public, because if that was the case, every single person would be a millionaire because you would just fade the public every time. So the thing with this series, though, or this 8-game seeding series that all these NBA teams are doing, is for the Pelicans, they actually have to win one more game than the Portland Trailblazers in order to get into the playoffs, unless the Memphis Grizzlies just are atrocious when the season starts up. Because of the way that the seeding is working right now, is we have 8 teams. 6 teams are already in. The Mavericks are going to clinch in their first or second game. It's just going to happen. There's no denying it. But what happens after that is if the 9th place team is within 4 games of the 8th place team, there's a 3-game mini series, 2-game. The 9th seed has to win 2 games. The 8th seed has to win 1. So the problem for the Pelicans is because they played 2 less games than the Trailblazers in the regular season before this restart started, they actually have to win one more game than the Trailblazers to jump up into the 9th spot. Now, I know a lot of people are probably like, okay, well, so what? It's the Trailblazers. Look at the Trailblazers starting 5 right now. The Trailblazers starting 5 is what they were hoping to get this entire time. We have CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony, Zach Collins, and Nurk. What is there to not like about that? Nurk and Collins, didn't play all season. Nurk's been out for 430 days or something like that. And so now they're going to be playing at full strength. Last season, the Trailblazers were the 3 seed in the West. Nobody wants to talk about them because they're not nearly as flashy. Even though Damian Lillard is amazing, they're not nearly as flashy as what everybody wants. Everybody wants it to be Zion because he's a rookie, because this is his first chance to really make something happen in the playoffs, to get to the playoffs. This crazy run the Pelicans were on at the end of the season. It's what everybody wants to see. It's what everybody wants to see. Vegas knows. Vegas knows. That's all I'm going to keep saying. Vegas knows. Today we got a game. The Pelicans are taking on the Jazz. The Jazz are the 4th best team in the West. The Pelicans are the 10th best team in the West. Bojan Bogdanovic is out for this game. However, the Jazz is 2.5-point dogs. I don't understand why. I feel like this is all Zion hype train. It's just all Zion hype to get him. He's going to get into the playoffs. He's going to do all that. We're not thinking logically. We're thinking in terms of what we want. Now, sometimes that happens. Sometimes Loyola Marymount goes to the Final Four and we get what we want. We get that Cinderella story. But I'm not buying it this time. The Pelicans do have an interesting schedule in here, which I'll get to in a second. But for this first game, I got the Jazz plus 2.5. We're putting that one on the card for sure. The Jazz plus 2.5 in the opening night game tonight of the NBA. I don't have anything on the Lakers Clippers. The whole Lou Williams incident is absolutely absurd. I can't even keep up with it. I don't know what the Clippers are going to be like, but I don't necessarily think that the Lakers are going to run away with it. It's at 4 points right now. I feel like this is going to be a tight game pretty much throughout. Maybe the Lakers pull away at the end, but I don't have enough confidence either way for a 2-possession game here. So I'm going to stay away from that one. But I love this Jazz bet. Jazz plus 2.5. I think it's the way you got to go. Now, going back to the Pelicans, I was talking about their schedule. They have a below 500 schedule in the 8 reseeding games. That is insane. What does that mean? They have. How do we come back? And we're talking playoff teams here, and the Pelicans are going to be playing a below 500 schedule for their 8 reseeding games. I don't understand how it slips through. I really don't. However, now the Pelicans, because of that and because of the Zion factor, as I've said, are the second favorite in order to get the 8 seed in this playoff. They're the second favorite behind the Grizzlies, who are minus 143. The Pelicans, I believe, are plus 200. I don't like the Pelicans, though. Why don't I like the Pelicans? Because I like the Blazers. The Blazers are, to get the 8 seed, are plus 400. It's a beautiful, beautiful number. It's huge. Their starting 5 is better than the Pelicans' starting 5. If it wasn't for the Zion factor, the Blazers would be swapped. The Blazers would be plus 240 and the Pelicans would be plus 400. Now, I understand that Zion's a great player, but this is, again, not the Zion factor of Zion being a great player. This is the Zion factor of Zion being Zion. And this is public overreaction to what's going on here. So I'm sitting down right now, and I got the Blazers at plus 400, getting in as the 8 seed. And another pick, I'm just riding the Blazers right here. Over 3.5 wins in their 8 seeding games. I think it's a really, really, really good bet. Over 3.5 in their reseeding games. There's 8 games. That means they got to go 4-4 at least. I'm expecting this Blazers team to go 6-2. Now, their schedule is not the easiest schedule you're ever going to find, but I am expecting that to happen. So those are 3 bets right now that I've just given you. One of them is actually for today. The other 2 are more long-term bets, but you should get them in sooner than later because we all know that that's going to start changing as things go on. But in terms of the bets that I have just given you, we have the Jazz plus 2.5, Blazers over 3.5 wins at plus 120, and the Blazers as the 8 seed as plus 400. I'm going to stick with this real quick in terms of these futures, in terms of the 8 reseeding games. The only other one that really stood out to me was the Milwaukee Bucks. And so the Milwaukee Bucks is set at 6.5, and they're playing 8 games, as I said. The Bucks already have the 1 seed essentially locked up. I mean, it's already in the bag. It's done. They're going to be the 1 seed. We have seen them bench players in the past in meaningless games. Just think about it. I know that this was in a playoff series and all of that, but think about the last time the Bucks were in the playoffs when they were the 1 seed. Well, how many minutes was Giannis playing? He was playing none. He was playing like 6 minutes every game because they were dominating all of their opponents. So there was no reason to keep him in. So I really don't think the Bucks are going 7-1 or 8-0 in this stretch. Could they? Yes, they could. But I also think that a team that already has the 1 seed wrapped up and is going to be looking ahead to a meaningful playoff series, which essentially, when they're taking on the 8 seed, it's not even going to be that big of a deal. They're going to probably be able to sweep them. So they're already looking long ahead. They can use that 1 versus 8 series to really get themselves going. This is huge juice. It's really bad juice. I mean, I understand that. But one of my things when I'm trying to bet these is, if you have a take before you look at it, if you have a take before you actually look at the line, and then the line is there, and even if it is a heavy favorite, it's just backing up your own opinion. It's just saying to you, yes, you are right. You should take this. Like, this is something that you were on. I had the Bucks looking at their schedule. They got the Rockets, they got the Celtics, they got the Mavs, I believe. They got the Raptors. I had them going 5-3, especially because none of their games are meaningful. This is set at 6.5. That's a game and a half higher. It means they got to win 2 more games than I was already projecting. I like the Bucks under here. It's a big number, -250, huge number. So you got to bet a lot to win anything meaningful. But it's something, if you're it's just something that we have so many long shots out there and all of that. But if you're going to keep losing long shots and every now and then you end up winning one, I really think that this is the type of thing you got to make a bet on. It's too easy. I mean, I'm seeing in here right now, Calisay, hard to kill, is saying they're going to be 1 seed unless they go 1-7 and the Raptors go 8-0. The Bucks aren't going to have to play after their first game. They're playing the Celtics game 1, and they're not going to have to play after that. So I really like this Bucks under 6.5. I think it's a really good bet. I'm going to put that one on the card too. And so now let's talk about a couple other games in here that I think are really interesting. As the weekend progresses. These aren't today's games. These are games as the weekend starts going on. Because what's nice about this is, with all these teams starting now, we can actually get a good look at it. Orlando Magic versus Brooklyn Nets. This is 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m., I guess, Eastern time tomorrow on Friday. It's the first game for either of these teams. The Nets have been all over the map in terms of, they don't have KD. They don't have Kyrie. They don't have Spencer Dinwiddie. They're missing half their team. And so they're putting out a bad team right now. Like, there's no denying they're putting out a bad team. What's interesting to me is Orlando's favored by 7. That's a pretty big number. There's no denying it. But I got to feel like everybody is going on Orlando, right? Like, everybody's going on Orlando. We all are just counting out the Nets. The Nets aren't very good, like, whatever. What is it with this 7? I felt like it almost would have been double digits. I really want to take Orlando in this spot. I was going to take the Nets because I figured that this number would be so high. I was expecting it around 10. And the fact that it's not coming in at 10, I think you got to take Orlando here. So Orlando right now, -7, the first game of the game tomorrow. I'm going to take that one, and I'm also going to put that one on the card because I think that's a good bet considering everything that the Nets are missing right now. I think it's just too hard to overlook that. And I think what's going to end up happening is, as this starts going on, as we get to game 2, game 3, game 4 for the Nets, we're just going to see the point spreads go up and up and up and up. Right now, I don't think Vegas knows what to do with the Nets because the Nets team just isn't all that great. But we haven't seen them play. So it's really hard to figure out what we're going to do with the Nets. I'm going to bet against them, and I'm going to go with Orlando. Might seem like a very public move, but I just think it's the move. I just think it's the right move right now to do and to make. So I'm going to go ahead and make that one. A couple other games tomorrow that I was looking at. I don't necessarily think I'm going to make any bets on. We got Memphis versus Portland. I like Portland at -2. That's another one that I think you should really be looking at there. I'm not throwing that one on for me right now, but I am thinking that Portland's going to come out. They're going to win that one. And it's going to set the tone for everything that's going to be moving forward. The other one, and this is probably my favorite bet of the entire weekend. And I know it's on a Friday game, but it's my favorite bet of the weekend. We're going to count it as the weekend. Weekends are all the time during these days. But Houston versus Dallas, over under. It literally just went up a point as I sat here. Is at 228. 228. That's a high over under. There is no denying that. High over under of 228. I am all over this over. I think this is you gotta hit this one. You gotta hammer this one. I think this is a very, very good over. There's two ways to look at what's going to happen with this NBA restart. Either we're going to be in a situation where teams are going to come out and they're going to be cold and they're not going to be able to put the ball in the basket, or they're going to come out and they're going to play the game without any fans, without having to deal with crowd noise, without any of that, and just be able to focus. I am all about the second option. At first, I was kind of leaning towards the first option. I was thinking, you know what? They're out of shape. They've been doing whatever they've been doing. Clearly, some people have been eating a lot of wings. I just think that after watching some of these scrimmages and seeing how teams have looked, I don't think they really missed a step. And I think the key here is going to be there is no home court advantage and there is no away game. So these players are just going to be able to play like they're playing a pickup game. Run up and down the court. They're going to be knocking down shots. I don't think anybody's going to miss. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this actually plays out when there's really no crowd to factor in. Mavericks, Rockets, even if there was a crowd, I would be hammering this over. It's like I said, at 228 right now. I got in at 227 yesterday. But look at what the scores of their first two games were. First game, Mavericks, 137 to 123. That's 260 points. 260 points. Second game, Rockets win 128 to 121. That's 249 points. We're talking 21 and 32 points higher than what this is at right now. Eric Gordon is going to be out for the game, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. He's not he could score 21 points, but he's not the 21 points. That doesn't mean the Rockets are going to score 21 less points. 228 is such a low number here for two of the best offensive teams in the entire NBA. The Rockets average 118 a game. The Mavericks are averaging 116.4. I don't understand this line. I don't understand. Maybe it's just like how high can you really go? I guess Vegas is expecting this one to get bet up. I mean, over 228, I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think you got to go with this one, and I'm putting that one on the card as well. You could toy around with the Houston money line. It's something that I looked at. I'm ultimately not going to pick it. It's minus 105. I'm not completely sold on it. I think the Rockets and the Mavericks are both pretty even teams. And in terms of the Mavericks, they're the 7th seed right now. They pretty much have it locked up. But I just think that they're just gonna keep it. I think that they're absolutely just gonna end up holding on there. Into the next one, we got the Jazz taking on the Thunder. That's one where I'm going to kind of wait and see. I want to see what the Jazz actually look like tonight before I look at that Thunder game on Saturday. We have the Lakers favored by 4 of the Raptors. Again, I kind of want to see Pelicans taking on the Clippers. I want to see what we're actually up against here before I make any of these bets. If you're looking for a player prop, though, this weekend, I would look at Porzingis. I think Porzingis is somebody who he's done really, really well. And I'm trying to let me pull up the numbers here because I want to make sure I have this for everybody. But Porzingis has done really, really well against the Rockets. And so I think if you're looking for a player prop here, look at his recent matchups versus the Rockets. He puts up points against them. In his last 2 games this season, he averaged, 29 points per game against the Rockets. Now, his season average is not 29 points per game, but I still think it's something worth looking at. I don't know if there's a player prop up on him yet. Let me look and see if there is. But in terms of this game, I think that he's somebody to look at. 29 points per game against the Rockets. If you can find something that's a little bit lower, something that's like around 23, 22, something like that, I think it's something you got to take. I think it's something you got to look at. And that's one that I think is really worth throwing on your on the card here because I really like Porzingis in this spot. That's all I got for the NBA right now. Like the problem right now is we're in the situation of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. We don't really know yet what we're going to get from the NBA and NHL players. We're not 100% sure how it's going to work out. We don't know if they're going to come out and they're going to be really great without fans and all that. We've seen scrimmages, but it's different. They don't mean anything. The problem is the devil we do know is the MLB, and that's a devil right now, and the MLS. And nobody wants to sit down and watch the MLS. So when you're looking at these two things, it's really hard. The NHL, I don't really know as much as you can kind of look at with the NBA. The NHL, I got 2 bets. That's all I got. I got 2 bets. I got the Oilers -1.5 +170. I'm putting that one on the card. They're playing against the Blackhawks, 5 versus 12. I love that Edmonton doesn't have to travel for this. I think that's a big deal, especially for these early games. I know all the teams have been in the bubble for a while now, but I think Edmonton comes out, and I think they dominate Chicago in this first game. They're just a much better team. They're like way better. It's really not even close. And I just think with the way that this is shaping up, to not have to travel in these early games, it's the one thing I can kind of put into my head and say, something I know, something I can grasp. Travel time, all of that. I really like Edmonton in this spot. I got them -1.5. And then the Flyers versus the Bruins. This is a fun game. The Flyers and the Bruins, they're battling it out in the weird like battle for seeding for the top 4 spots. The Bruins are going to take it over the Flyers, I think. However, the over-under is set at 5.5. And I think that's way too high. Let's just think about this right now. Bruins, goals against. They are the best defense in the NHL with 2.39 goals against. Philly ranks, for some reason I wrote down 25th, but I guess 6th in the NHL with 2.77 goals against. 2.77 and 2.39. This is set at over under 5.5. Now, they had one insane game in the middle of the season here where it was 5-5, but the other 2 times they've played, it was 3-2 and 2-0. I think we get something more like that. I think that this is a great under bet here. Just 2 really good defenses. The offenses are good as well. There's no denying that. But I think especially when you start to get to playoff hockey, defenses start to kind of take over a little bit here. So I like this under at 5.5. This game is on, I believe I said it was on Sunday. So it's on Sunday, August 2nd. I'm skipping over all the opening day games, though, except for the Oilers. I don't really know what's going to happen with the Rangers and the Hurricanes. I don't know what's going to go on with the Panthers and the Islanders. Hockey's a tough one to begin with, but I really want to be able to watch the games to kind of see what's going to happen. I feel like, especially with hockey, it's one of those when you can see what a team looks like as they're playing, that's when you're going to get your best results. So I'm going to sit. I'm going to wait on hockey just a little bit, and you'll probably hear a lot more bets from me on Monday regarding hockey. But for right now, the 2 that I'm throwing on the card are the Oilers -1.5 and the Flyers Bruins under 5.5. All right. So let's jump to the MLB here, and let's talk a little bit about that. The MLB is a mess right now, and I don't really know what to do with the MLB. I get worried because all these little cancellations and all of that, it affects pitchers more than anything. And that bothers me. And I granted, we've only seen cancellations really with the Phillies, the Orioles, the Marlins, and the Yankees. That's really all we've seen cancellations with. I still could see this being a problem for other teams moving forward. I don't think that we're done with teams testing positive for COVID. Now, granted, if anything is true about the Marlins going out in Atlanta before the game, and if that's all real, even if it's a rumor, it's a great way to get players to not go out and do things, which is important. I mean, look, right now we're living in a different time. Don't go out and do things if you're a professional athlete, because you're not putting yourself at risk. You're putting an entire industry at risk, which is crazy to think about. But you're putting an entire industry, and it's not like, oh, well, we got to keep everybody healthy and safe, blah, blah, blah. We do, obviously. But you're also putting the hotel workers, all the people who are putting their necks on the line for you to go and play a kids game. Stay in for 2 months. It's 2 months. When you go to a new city, you see the bright lights of Atlanta, stay inside. There's no need to go out. At the end of the day, when this is all over, you're going to be living in Miami. You have plenty of time to have a really good time. But I don't know if we've seen the end of this. I'm pretty sure we have not seen the end of this. So I'm having a hard time with the MLB. Granted, we're going to be moving forward here, looking at, games, and spreads for MLB don't really come out early. It's really a day-to-day thing, so it's hard for me to kind of look ahead. Hopefully on Monday or next Thursday, we'll be able to find some maybe series spreads or something like that we can really get into. But when I was looking at lines for today's games, so granted, I hope you're listening to this on July 30th. When I'm looking at lines for today's games, there's a couple that jump out to me. I think the Cubs and the Reds is an over worth looking at. It's at 8.5 right now. It's definitely something worth looking at. Both teams have been pretty much on fire since this started in terms of scoring. But I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to look at the Yankees and the Orioles here. Of course, right? How could we not look at the Yankees and the Orioles? I woke up an hour and a half ago. This over under total runs has gone up 1.5. That's how much it's going up. I'm looking at the Yankees, though, and it really hasn't gone up all that much, which is nice in terms of their total runs. That's what I'm going to go with. I don't like this. So this is at 11 runs right now. I think this probably does go over 11, but then you're putting a lot of faith in the fact that the Orioles are going to score runs. I'm seeing this at 6.5 for the Yankees against Baltimore, who they just demolish every time they play. Last night's game was 9-3. I really like this one. Yankees over 6.5 runs. They have J.A. Happ starting. So what does that really say for the Yankees? I don't know. Like, he could get hit by the Orioles. Garrett Cole I think he gave up 2 runs last night. He might have given up 3. But either way, I like the Yankees going over here. Like, if you have to look at a baseball thing, what do you feel confident in? The Yankees scoring runs against the Orioles? That's pretty much the most guaranteed thing you can have in sports. It's what happens. I love this over 6.5. So I'm going to put that one on the card. The next one I'm going to look at, and this is really the only other game I have right now for the MLB today. So, maybe throughout the day as I start looking a little bit more, at see like how lineups start coming out. Follow me on Twitter, which is right there at Phil Wood Jr. If you want to see that. I might look a little bit at some of these other games, but none of them are really jumping out to me except for Cleveland versus Minnesota. This one is bizarre to me. I don't understand this one. Again, like, I understand that home field is a thing, but home field isn't really a thing. Home field is a thing to an extent, right? Like, what does it really mean? There's no crowd. There's nothing like that. They don't have to travel, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Minnesota is the home team here. Jose Barrios got absolutely shelled by the Kansas City Royals in his first game. He gave up 7 hits, 5 earned runs in 4 innings, but to the Royals, one of the worst teams in baseball. He did that. Shane Bieber, on the other hand, who's starting for Cleveland, 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 14 strikeouts, 1 walk. Actually, he was against the Royals. Barrios was against the White Sox, so correction on that one. But, okay, so Shane Bieber does all his work against one of the worst teams in baseball. Barrios does it against the White Sox, who have been meh to start the season right now. We don't really know what we're getting with the White Sox. This is weird, though. The over-under is set 8.5. Originally, I'm like, that's a pretty good over to take, right? Like, why not? I understand Shane Bieber, really good, but these are 2 teams that score. I mean, the Royals are not the Twins, that's for sure. So the Twins come out, they start getting some hits in. All right, cool. They put up some runs. But what I don't understand here is with that being at over under 8.5 and the Twins being favored, I'm confused because it feels like a low number, which to me would signal that the Indians should actually be the favored team here because of this low over under total. It makes it seem like, okay, the Indians are going to be the ones who kind of dictate the game here with their pitching and all that. So I like the Indians money line here. I'm going to stay away from the over under, but I'm going to ride Shane Bieber and go off of Jose Barrios' terrible performance the first game. Now, like I said, first game of the year was against the Royals for Bieber, one of the worst teams in baseball. However, 14 strikeouts against a major league team is insane. That's insane. It doesn't matter who that major league team is. I don't even care if it's whatever the Marlins are going to put out next Monday. That's an insane stat. Maybe that's how he's going to be this season. If that's how he's going to be, I'm going to ride it. Them as underdogs in this game. It's only plus 108. Maybe you can shop around and find it closer, maybe like plus 120, plus 110, something like that. But I really think that this is something that should be on the card here. This game is at 4:07 Eastern. This is probably my favorite MLB bet of the day. If the Yankees weren't playing the Orioles, which as they are, it's easy to just throw that one in there. But this is the one that stands out to me as maybe we should be keeping an eye on this one. So those are my 2 MLB bets: Yankees over 6.5 runs versus Baltimore, Cleveland money line against Minnesota. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. All of you have probably been waiting with bated breath on when are we finally going to get to the MLS. And it was funny because I do some writing for bettingpros.com, And the other day, I don't know who follows me. I have no idea. The other day, I was watching the Portland Timbers play FC Cincinnati, and I had the Portland money line. And the Portland goalie decided that when the ball came in like the 80th minute, that he was going to play with his feet, even though there was a player for FC Cincinnati right there. Then he decides that he's going to try to pick it up. He tackles the player for FC Cincinnati. That's the MLS in a nutshell. Gives up a penalty kick. It ties the game 1-1. That is the MLS in a nutshell. It's horrible, horrible soccer. It's not good. It's really, really bad. But it's also sports, and sports are sports, and I've been watching the MLS religiously. You would think it was my favorite sport with how much I've been watching it, because as soon as it started, I felt like, great, sports are back. Let's start putting some action down on some of these games. We have 4 quarterfinal games, and this is how they shape up. We got Philadelphia Union versus Sporting KC. That game is tonight. We have Orlando City versus LAFC. That's tomorrow. We have the San Jose Earthquakes versus Minnesota United. And we have NYCFC versus the Portland Timbers. As I discussed earlier, the wonderfully great gifted goalkeeper of the Portland Timbers. That is Saturday, August 1st. So you got 4 games, quarterfinals, moving on. Look, it's a tournament. That's the way I look at it. You get me a tournament for sports, I'll watch it. I really will. I don't care what it is. I will sit down and I will watch it, and I will deal with all of the terribleness. Does it look like me and my friends when we were playing U10 soccer? Yeah, sometimes it really does. When you watch people kick the ball to try to clear it and it goes straight out of bounds, and you're like, I did that when I was 9 years old. It's a little frustrating sometimes. It really is. But it's a tournament. How exciting is that? A tournament in sports. So let's talk about some of these games. Philadelphia Union versus Sporting KC. Right now, the Union are plus 250. Sporting KC is plus 100. I think the Union have looked better than Sporting KC this entire time. If you look at how the two teams advanced to get here, the Union, they won their game in their, I don't even know what you would call it. I'm trying to think. The round of 16. I guess there is nothing bigger than quarterfinals. But in the round of 16, the Union win their game 1-0 over New England. They looked pretty good doing it, whereas Sporting KC couldn't score against Vancouver, who Vancouver shouldn't even be here still. So I think that this one's interesting. I'm not going to end up making a bet on this one, but if I had to go with something, I think that betting on Philadelphia Union to advance, not Philadelphia Union money line, but Philadelphia Union to advance, it's at plus 140 right now. I don't think that would be the worst bet in the world. I think that could be a pretty good bet. I like these to advance in the MLS because the thing is, trying to pick the winner in regulation isn't always the easiest, because we're going to be talking about Minnesota United in a second. When Minnesota United played against Columbus, they dominated that entire game, and then Columbus scored at the end, tied it up, and Minnesota United still advanced. I like these two advanced bets. So if you're not used to betting on soccer, when they put up a money line, it's regular time. And obviously in the MLS, they're not actually doing extra time right now. But if it's tied at the end and you had money line on Minnesota, even if they win PKs, you're not winning that. But with team to advance, that's where you win that. I like the Union here. I think the Union are going to get by Sporting KC. I don't know if they're going to do it in regulation, though. That's the biggest problem. So that's why I'm not going to put anything on this. But I would say if you were looking for a team to advance here, I think that could be a good bet to make in terms of the Philadelphia Union over Sporting KC. Moving on to the next game, which is Orlando versus LAFC. LAFC is by far the best team in this bracket. They're by far the best team. They're like the one team that hasn't infuriated me while watching. I feel like I'm actually watching a soccer team kick a soccer ball. Like I really do. I almost called it a football, but I really do feel like I'm actually watching a real soccer team play soccer when I watch LAFC. I think they're going to beat Orlando. But one thing that I really like in this game, and I'm putting on the card, is over 4.5 goals between the two teams. It's at plus 240. I'm even tempted to say over 5.5 goals, which right now, I know yesterday it was a little bit different, but right now, if you did over 5.5, it's plus 575. I think both of those are worth betting. I think both of those are good bets. Orlando only won their game 1-0, but if you watch that game, they should have had 15 goals in that game. They're a team that scores. Their defense isn't great, and I know they beat Montreal 1-0, but Montreal literally is one of the most inept offenses I've ever seen of a soccer team. So when I look at what's happening with Orlando versus Montreal, Orlando should have seriously scored. Like, it was insane how many goals they should have scored in that game, which kind of goes back to Sporting KC. They had 38 shots and didn't score. That's MLS soccer, baby. So when I sit down and I look at what's going on with this Orlando game, they're a team that is going to score. LAFC gives up goals. They gave up 2 goals to Portland. They gave up 2 goals to the LA Galaxy. I'm not sure what they did in their first game, but I can find that probably very, very quickly. But all I'm saying is LAFC gives up goals, but more importantly, LAFC scores goals. LAFC is the best offense in this by far. They're going to put the ball in the net. There's just no stopping it from happening. And I think these are 2 really good offensive teams going at it head to head. I think LAFC wins this game. I think they win it 4-2, 5-2. Something absurd. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I would be really shocked. Normally, when you get to like semifinals of tournaments, especially like, the bigger tournaments, teams might kind of back off a little bit, and it's a little bit lower of a scoring game. I'm expecting goals early in this game, and I'm expecting goals often. I really am. And so when I look at this game, this is my one. The one I'm putting on my card is Orlando LAFC over 4.5 goals at plus 240. If you're having a good weekend, and you're thinking, hey, let me take a little bit of a long shot, Orlando LAFC over 5.5 goals, unbelievable. Like, that is a really good long shot to take right now. Plus 575. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. I know I'm talking about MLS, and I'm getting excited about it. It's making me sick to my stomach too. I absolutely hate it, but it's something worth looking at for sure. Next game we're looking at here is, oh no, it went away on me. All right, the next one we're looking at is San Jose Earthquakes, Minnesota United. I was just talking about team to advance. Minnesota United is advancing past San Jose. They're advancing past San Jose. This is probably, there's a very good chance this one's going to PKs. Why would I be so confident that a team is going to advance past another team if it could go to PKs? I'm not impressed with San Jose. San Jose had a good game the other day against Seattle. They took it to Seattle. It was 2-0 for most of the game. Seattle scored late, but that final score, it's bogus. I think the final of that one was 4-1. It was bogus. They started putting in goals at the end when Seattle just started fouling, and they didn't care. So I'm looking at this one, and I really think Minnesota United and their defense, the one thing I am confident in the MLS right now is Minnesota United's defense. And I'm not confident in San Jose's offense. I think San Jose's offense isn't as good as maybe what the stats show right now. So I like Minnesota to advance here. I don't have a number on Minnesota to advance, but that's what I'm going to be putting on the card is Minnesota to advance. I don't have a number on it yet. I think it's probably going to be around plus 110, plus 120. I might also put a little bit on Minnesota United here at plus 210. To win just straight up in regulation. I think that's one worth looking at. San Jose probably gets at least a goal in this game. So there's also the option to bet both teams to score, which I think could be a good bet in this game. But I like Minnesota to advance past San Jose. Minnesota is just an under. It's one of those things, like, I knew nothing about MLS coming into this tournament. I just sat down. I started watching MLS because it was July 8th and no other sport was on for the first time in our nation's history except for the MLS. And so I sat down and I started watching. And Minnesota was not a team that was really talked about, but neither was San Jose. And Minnesota has been like one of the only teams other than LAFC who has looked good the entire tournament. There has not been a game where I'm like, oh, there it is. That's the MLS I was looking for. I just haven't seen that yet. And so I like them in this spot to just advance past the San Jose team, who has been kind of like the Cinderella darling of this tournament right now. And I think the whole thing with Minnesota coming in, if I can follow what the announcers are saying, and if the announcers on these games are correct, which what's hilarious is half of these games aren't even on regular TV, even when there was no other sport on. I had to watch some of these games on TUDN, which is a Spanish network. So I'm watching a lot of these games in Spanish, and I barely speak any words of Spanish, but it's just funny to me that the only major sport, and major in air quotes, sport that is on at the time isn't even on one of the network. Fox couldn't get the rights to that. You couldn't put it on CBS or something. Like, we really got to watch Days of Our Lives for the 19th time. But Minnesota does score. They scored 2 goals against Colorado. They scored 2 goals against Sporting KC. They come into this without losing it. They still have not lost. They've tied 3 of their games in regulation, which again is why I kind of like them a little bit more to advance. So if I was doing this too, you could also do the what is it? The double chance or something. I don't think they don't have the odds up for that yet on the Minnesota San Jose game, but the double chance could be something worth looking at here too if the numbers are, not too ridiculous, because a tie for regulation or Minnesota to win. I really like Minnesota here. I really do. And I think you get pretty good odds on that one if you're doing the tie Minnesota to win rather than doing the tie San Jose to win. Now, granted, it's not up yet, so I can't tell you exactly what it's going to end up being, but that could definitely be something that's worth looking into. Let me see. Oh, it is up. It is up. All right, here we go. Okay, so double chance right now. Unfortunately, it's only for the first half and second half. I don't see it for the entire game, but ignore that. So for the first half, double chance, Minnesota United tie or win is minus 250. Second half is minus 205. So again, you're probably going to be looking at like minus 220 or something like that. I said earlier with the Bucks bet, don't necessarily be completely turned off by that. But then again, do you really want to be taking a huge favorite in the MLS where we saw Sporting KC tie against Vancouver when they were like minus 275 or something like that, and Vancouver was like plus 600 or something absurd? It's the MLS. It's that's all I can say, but I like Minnesota to advance. The last game of the weekend, I have absolutely no read on. NYC versus Portland. I don't know either of these teams. I've watched their games. I was against NYC when they played against Toronto. What's really sad for America and probably explains why we didn't make the last World Cup is because two of the best players that America has right now, Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley, I think are both on Toronto. I have to say I think, but they are both on Toronto. I'm just so used to saying that with the MLS. And they get smoked by NYC, who I couldn't name a single player on the team. So NYC moves on. They're kind of the Cinderella story here. They shouldn't have even made it to this round. It was because Houston ended up tying in their last game rather than just winning the thing. And so they made it to the knockout stage, and now they're moving on to play Portland, who I just got burned by Portland because Portland's goalie is inept, and I'm just not sure how I feel about Portland as a soccer team right now. I really don't. I just wave my hand at it. So that's a game. Bet at your own peril. I can't really get on that one. That's all I have for this inaugural episode of On the Card. I wanted to preface with this just so everybody knows kind of what you're working with here, because I know a lot of people will be like, oh, is he just a homer pick and all of that? And I think it's important to kind of throw that out there off the bat so that you guys know who I am. This way, if I start to bet on things and you're like, well, it's just because he's a fan of that, you can kind of understand that. For baseball, I'm a Yankees fan. For football, I'm a Lions fan. So again, don't be too hard on me if I start picking the Lions or something. I'm used to getting burned by that terrible franchise. For basketball, I'm a Celtics fan. For the NHL, I'm a Flyers fan. And then for college football and all of those things, I went to Miami. So it's about the U. So that's what I got for all of that. So if you're looking at any of, Phil, what do you, why are you being such a homer? At least now you'll know which teams. And if you're not listening to this first episode, anybody who doesn't listen is never going to find out because I'm only going to talk about it every now and then. So if you're here for the first episode, you just got warned on what to expect. But let's run through the card one more time just to keep track of what we have for this weekend. We got the Yankees over 6.5 runs versus the Orioles. Cleveland money line. Those games are both today on Thursday, July 30th. We got the Jazz plus 2.5 also today. We got Orlando -7, despite the fact that everybody in the world is going to be betting that. Houston, Dallas over 228. We got Blazers over 3.5 wins in this 8-game series of seeding. Bucks under 6.5 wins. Blazers as the 8 seed plus 400. Plus 400. Plus 400. I'm just going to keep saying that. NHL got the Oilers -1.5 plus 170. Flyers versus Bruins under 5.5 goals. MLS, what everybody wanted to hear about. Orlando LAFC over 5.5 goals. If you're really feeling risky, go over 5.5 goals. That's a really good one. And Minnesota to advance. Also, keep an eye out for the Porzingis player prop. If it's something around 22 or 23 points against the Rockets, you should go with it. I'll do this for Russell because I know a lot of you are Russell guys. Thanks for tuning in. Keep hope alive. See you on Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7